Hello everyone, I'm back with another quick recap and review of Rick and Morty. Today I'm talking about Season 8, Episode 3, The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly. Originally I wrote a review of this episode that spanned 4 pages, which wasn't conducive to the idea of quick, so I hacked it up a bit so I can get this done faster. I'm really summarizing here, so if you want the full story, watch the episode. As usual, there will be spoilers upcoming, so fairly warned be thee, says I. This episode shows us the lives of clones of Rick and Morty who survived the destruction of the Citadel in the Season 5 finale and live amongst the ruins. The focus of the episode is on a Rick known as Homesteader Rick who farms animals and crops and lives near a Morty town. While he's in town on business, a group of other Ricks arrive in a spaceship and start capturing Mortys. They shoot Homesteader Rick and leave him for dead, then take the Mortys back to a settlement where the clone Ricks are building a new Citadel and perform experiments on the Mortys to try and clone them. Homesteader Rick is healed by drones and returns home to discover that the other Ricks destroyed his home and killed his livestock, which he seemed overly fond of, and he arms himself and heads out for revenge. He finds 2 clone Mortys in the back of the truck, Arcade Morty and Doc, who wish to rescue the other kidnapped Mortys. Together, they infiltrate the kidnapper's lair to get information, but Doc is killed in the fight. The trail leads Homesteader Rick and Arcade Morty to the new Citadel. They attempt to rescue the Mortys, but are captured by the leader of the clone Ricks, Big Rick, who was created to be a heavy-set Southern Railroad baron stereotype as a mascot of a Citadel restaurant. It's revealed that Homesteader Rick isn't a clone and was one of the Rick scientists who work on the Morty cloning tech on the Citadel. Big Rick wants the cloning tech to create a civilization of slave Mortys to serve the Rick clones in his new Citadel, but Homesteader Rick betrays him, creating a mutant Morty that starts destroying the settlement. Freeing the kidnapped Mortys, Homesteader Rick sends them off in the spaceship and goes on to destroy the rest of the settlement, taking himself and Big Rick out in the process. The freed Mortys watch the destruction from orbit, and with Arcade Morty's guidance, each go on to find a new home that suits them. Arcade Morty returns to the homestead and buries Homesteader Rick and Doc, and then has a brief but frustrating interaction with Rick C-137 and Morty. So what are my thoughts about this episode? I didn't really care for it, and I'll tell you why by comparing it to its spiritual successor, Season 3's The Ricklantis Mixup. In The Ricklantis Mixup, we were introduced to a variety of Ricks and Mortys living on the Citadel. Even though the episode length was the same as this one, we learned a bit about each of their personalities, history, and aspirations. And we connected with those characters. When Slick threw himself into the wishing portal, it felt like a profound moment after watching his Stand By Me journey with his friends. When Training Day Rick was forced to kill his Morty partner, it was a tense moment. When Rick J22 was let out of the Simple Ricks factory, you actually felt like he had made a meaningful difference in his life, and then you felt the pain of the betrayal. When it was revealed that the Morty candidate was in fact Evil Morty, it brought all those stories into the fold and the overall story arc of the series, and all of these characters felt significant. But this episode feels disconnected from everything, and the storytelling was so much weaker. We learned nothing about the characters other than how Arcade Morty wore a unique hairstyle and Doc Morty wasn't a real doctor. Big Rick was the only clone with a backstory of any sort, and the other Rick clones were just there to be stylistically different. What was hinted at but not explicitly stated was that Homesteader Rick must have been indigenous to that universe, as he wasn't returned to a different universe when the portal fluid was reset. If that had any sort of implication to the story, it went unexplored. Whether he had cloned the Mortys living in the Morty town before or after the Citadel wasn't clear, nor was why he chose to live near them. Aside from Evil Morty, characters introduced in the Ricklantis Mixup have yet to be revisited, though I'd love it if it turns out Slick had survived the wishing portal and returned someday, and I suspect none of these Mortys will be heard from again. Without a tie-in to a larger story arc, these events feel hollow and kind of pointless. I think it would have been more interesting to show, even briefly, how Homesteader Rick survived the events of the Season 5 finale and ended up on the asteroid. Maybe explore how his feelings about cloning all those Mortys made him loathe himself, which is why he hates visiting them, rather than just having one-off comments about how he hates himself. Despite this episode taking place amongst the ruins of the Citadel, the only recognizable fragment I saw was the corpse of Andy, the short-lived mascot of the Citadel under Evil Morty seen in the Season 5 finale. This episode is also notable for being one of the few without a cold open before the intro. So that's my recap and review. What did you think? Has there been a dip in the quality of storytelling since the early seasons? Are they building up to something big? Will we see these characters again? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to support my channel, and check out my novel Holocene. And as always, thanks for watching.